So, AI is everywhere, right? But how does it actually get built? I mean, it's not magic, even though it sometimes feels like it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the step-by-step journey that takes an AI from just an idea scribbled on a napkin to a powerful tool that's changing our world.
So how does it happen? Well, it's actually a really structured, pretty fascinating process. And by the time we're done here, you'll have the complete roadmap that shows you how a simple concept on a whiteboard becomes a tool that can literally reshape entire industries.
All right, so here's our map for today. We're going to look at the overall AI development roadmap, then dive deep into the 6 key stages. We'll also cover the common challenges you might face, the tools and best practices that help see AI out in the real world, and finally, take a peek at what the future holds.
Okay, so let's chart the course. Just like you wouldn't build a skyscraper without a blueprint, you don't build a powerful AI in some chaotic sprint. It follows a really structured, well-defined life cycle. The best way to think about it is as a detailed roadmap that guides the whole team from start to finish, making sure nothing, and I mean nothing, critical gets missed along the way.
And that blueprint? Well, it has an official name, the AI Development Lifecycle. It's basically a proven framework that takes this huge, massive task of building an AI and breaks it down into smaller, much more manageable phases. And trust me, in a field this complex, that kind of structure is absolutely everything.
So, what does this path actually look like on the ground? Well, the whole journey is broken down into 6 essential stages. Each one builds directly on the one before it. So, let's start walking through them.
All right, here they are, the 6 key stages, all laid out. You can see it starts with defining the problem, then you get into the data and the modeling, you deploy it, and this is key. It doesn't stop there. You have to keep monitoring it. This is the core workflow. So let's dive into stage 1.
Okay, stage 1, problem definition. And this is so important. Before anyone writes a single line of code, you have to know exactly what you're building and why. This is all about planning. Asking the big questions. What problem are we actually trying to solve? Can we even do this technically? Does it make financial sense? And maybe most importantly, what are the ethical impacts and potential biases? Getting this stage right is the foundation for everything else.
Next up, data. Now, if the AI model is the engine, then data is its fuel. Simple as that. But you can't just pour in crude oil, right? You have to refine it, and that's what this stage is all about. It's meticulous, painstaking work. Teams gather all this raw data from different places, clean it up to fix errors, merge it all together, and then label it so the AI actually knows what it's looking at. And make no mistake, the quality of the final AI is 100% dependent on the quality of this data work.
All right, now we're getting to the technical heart of the whole process, actually designing, training, and testing the model. First, engineers have to pick the right type of model for the job. Is it going to be a large language model for text, or maybe a supervised learning model that learns from labeled examples? Once they've picked one, they design its architecture. Then comes the training. This is where they feed it all that clean data we just talked about, and the model starts identifying patterns. But you can't just trust it's working. After training, it's put through rigorous tests with brand new data it's never seen before. That's how you validate if it's actually accurate.
So, once a model passes all its tests with flying colors, it's time for the big launch. This is where you deploy it into a live production environment so it can start doing its job. But, and this is a huge but, it is never ever set it and forget it. Nope. Teams have to constantly monitor its performance. They're watching for things like data drift, which is a fancy way of saying the real-world data starts to look different from the training data, and that can really mess with accuracy. All that feedback then gets looped back in to retrain and improve the model over time. It's a living thing.
Now, of course, this whole roadmap makes it sound like a nice, smooth highway. But let's be real, there are always going to be bumps in the road. There are some really common challenges and obstacles that pretty much every AI project has to deal with.
And probably the biggest, most common bump on the road, it's data. Just finding enough, high quality, relevant, and consistent data can be a total nightmare. I mean, think about it. Imagine you're trying to train a chatbot for a really rare language. If you can't find enough books or articles or audio recordings in that language, it doesn't matter how amazing your model is. The chatbot is just not going to perform well. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Then you've got the purely technical hurdles. We're talking about some serious computing power here, especially for the really big models. Training and running them takes a ton of juice, so teams have to make sure they have the right hardware, that the whole system can scale up if it gets popular, and that it can plug in smoothly with all the company's other tech. It's a huge logistical puzzle.
In this next one, this is maybe one of the most important and complex challenges of all: ethics, specifically algorithmic bias. The thing is, an AI is only as fair as the data you feed it. So for example, if you build an HR tool and train it on decades of historical hiring data, it might just learn to copy the human biases from the past, unintentionally favoring certain groups. That's a huge problem. And it's why a critical part of the process has to be auditing these systems to make sure they're as fair and transparent as possible.
So, with all these challenges, how do teams actually get through it? Well, they don't go in empty-handed. They rely on a powerful toolkit and a set of guiding principles, best practices, to keep them on the right path. This is basically their essential gear for the entire journey.
And the really good news here is that you're not building everything from the ground up. There is a huge ecosystem of amazing tools out there for literally every stage of this process. You've got tools like Apache Spark for processing data, famous frameworks like TensorFlow and PyTorch for building the models, and cloud platforms like AWS SageMaker or Google's Vertex AI to run it all. The toolkit is massive.
Now, when it comes to best practices, one of the biggest ones is using agile methodologies. Here's why. AI development is super experimental. You often don't know what's going to work right off the bat. So instead of planning one giant, years-long project, teams break the work into these little 2-week chunks called sprints. This lets them build something small, test it, get feedback, and adapt really, really quickly. It's all about that fail-fast idea, so you can find what actually works way sooner.
In another huge best practice, remembering that building great AI is a total team sport. It is not just a bunch of data scientists locked away in the lab. You absolutely need engineers to build the infrastructure, you need product managers to make sure it's aligned with what customers actually want, and you need domain experts. If you're building a medical AI, you better have doctors in the room to make sure the results actually make sense. That collaboration is everything.
Okay, so after all that hard work, the planning, the data wrangling, the training, the testing, what do you get at the end? What's the payoff? Well, let's take a look at some postcards from the destination and see this stuff in action out in the real world.
Take a look at healthcare and finance. In hospitals, AI is already analyzing medical scans to spot diseases earlier, and sometimes even more accurately than a human doctor. Over in finance, it's working 24/7 in real time, spotting fraudulent credit card transactions the second they happen. We're talking about technology that is already having a massive, profound impact.
And it doesn't stop there. In retail, AI is the reason you get those spookily accurate shopping recommendations online. It's also helping stores predict exactly how much stuff to order so they don't run out. Then you go into a factory, and AI is there predicting when a specific machine is about to break down, which saves a ton of money and time. It is literally transforming how businesses get things done.
So we've seen the journey, and we've seen where it can lead. But, this road keeps on going. The world of AI development is changing at lightning speed. So let's look ahead. What's on the horizon?
Let's just start with the sheer scale of this thing. A report by PwC estimates that AI could contribute, get this, up to $15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. Just let that number sink in. That is a staggering figure. And it shows you that this isn't just some niche tech trend. It is a fundamental economic force that will shape the next decade and probably the rest of our lives.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most critical question. We have a clear roadmap for how to build AI, right? We get the stages, we see the challenges, we know the tools. But as this technology gets more and more powerful and woven into the very fabric of our lives, the most important question isn't a technical one, it's a human one. Who is drawing the map for a responsible future? Who is making sure that we build all of this ethically and in a way that truly benefits everyone? Now that is something for all of us to really think about.